Okay, hello 21A students. This is a video about annotation. I want to review with you a little bit what I want when you annotate. On our first annotation assignment, I gave many of you a 0 because you're not annotating exactly the way I want you to. So that's okay. I'm going to let you do it again. And in most cases, you just need to add some stuff. But I thought I'll go over a little bit of it, what I'm looking for, and hopefully that helps you. There are really two reasons that you annotate. One of them, which I hope helps you in your future studies, is that it does help you remember more from the article. It helps you interact with the article in a way that will be more meaningful. It helps you participate more, have more ideas during the next day's class discussion. Helps you become a more critically thinking student, okay? But the second reason for me is you need to show me that you're doing that. You need to prove to me that you're doing the reading in that way, where you're looking at what the author's saying, you're understanding it, you're thinking about it, you're responding to it, okay? So there's some kinds of annotation, the weaker annotation that doesn't show me that, and I can't really give you a good score for that, or sometimes no score at all. So let's look at a little section, okay? So just this section here, the understanding the brain section. If I'm annotating this, or let's say if I'm a student and annotating this, and I notice, as many of you did, that there are fundamental differences in how brains and computers process and store information. Let's say I notice there's a comparison, right? And I write comparison because they're comparing something. That's good. It really is good. But you can't stop there. That's not enough. This isn't going to help you the next day in class. When the professor says, okay, what's happening in this article? And you say comparison. Okay, that's not going to be enough. So maybe you're going to remember, and that's great. But there could be lots of things to remember. There could be lots of pages. So more than just comparison, you need to say what's being compared. And I'm not going to write over here how brains and computers process and store information, because those aren't my words. So I'm going to try to say this in a way that it's me, it's just me. So I might even just say here, brains versus computers. And you could add more, definitely. But that's the comparison. What's the difference between brains and computers? Maybe how they remember. I don't know. In how they remember. In how they remember. How many differences are there? I asked some of you this in class. Almost nobody marked how many differences there are. To me, that's crazy. If we're trying to understand the structure of this article, if we're trying to understand what point it is the author is making, and the author says there are some fundamental differences, one question I definitely want to ask is how many? Or what are they, right? How many? What are they? Some of you did write questions like that, like why, or what, or how many. That's a good first step too. That's really good. But you need to answer these questions. You need to answer these questions. It's not enough. These aren't good questions to ask in class. If the professor says, okay, students, what did you think of the article? And you say, well, I noticed that there were some differences between brains and computers. How many are there? No, you don't ask the professor that. You find out. That's your job in reading this article. What are these differences? Okay, so where are the differences? Well, here's difference number 1. And some of you marked number 1. A few of you, very few of you. That's a good start too. But what is number 1? What is difference number 1? The first difference, what is it? I want it in your own words right here. It's if you read this, you'll see it's the brain follows orders. Exactly. And, oh, sorry, backwards. Computers. A computer follows orders, exactly. Versus a brain doesn't. It doesn't follow orders. You can't program it. You can't control it. So you could say computers can be programmed, but brains cannot be programmed. If you keep reading, and I'm not going to read it all with you, but there's a second major difference, and so you're gonna mark a second difference here. And then again, don't just mark the difference. Say what it is. So that the next day in class, when your professor says, what's the second difference, you're not reading the article, you're reading your notes, okay? So the second major difference, as it turns out, is that there's a different location. So different location of stored information. And this is mostly on the next page, but brains all over. And then computers, one place, one file. Okay, so that's a second difference. And you might want to say more about that. What implications does that have for our studying? If all the information is in one place, is it easier to recall? I might even write that, right? I'm just wondering that. Is info in one place easier to recall? Whenever you ask these questions, like this is a question and these are questions, it's your job to try to answer those questions. Is this in the article? Is the answer to this question in the article? Actually, don't really think it is. So this is actually a good question to bring up in class with a professor, because it's not answered in the reading. Some of you are asking questions that are answered in the reading. And then there's a third difference here. Let's see. Oh, no, that's not the third one. The third one's right here. Finally, the brain, let's see, is more limited, less powerful than a computer. Okay, and again, we could maybe ask some questions about that if you have some questions. But this is this what I'm writing right here, the number 1 and 2 and 3, that's the minimum. I mean, you have to at least get some of the structure from this article. I'm seeing a lot of important pieces of information, important points in the article, and students do not comment on them or only underline them or copy them over on the side. And none of those things are actually what makes good annotation. What good annotation is identifying some important points and then maybe summarizing the points, connecting the points to other places, organizing the points in a way that you can find them later. I'm actually reading these things, so it's your job to, for me in this class, it's your job to write them in a way that shows me you're tracking what's going on in the article. And most likely, you can't do this perfectly the first time you read the article. So you're going to need to do it, some of it, and then you're going to need to go back and say, oh, it turns out there are 3 reasons. So I think I'll number those 2, 3, or 3 fundamental differences, 1, 2, and 3. And actually, the second one didn't make sense. So I'm gonna explain over here why it doesn't make sense to me. If I don't see that, that suggests that you haven't read the article enough. You haven't gotten enough out of that article. Okay. And then finally, I mean, you should go through the whole article. I should see comments. You know, doesn't have to be every paragraph, but I should see comments on every section at least. And certainly all the important parts of the article. And again, it's your job to find the important parts. Finally, at the very end, when you've read everything, somewhere you've got to recap. And it could be at the top, it could be at the bottom, it could be in each section. But somewhere in here, it needs to demonstrate that you know what's going on in the article. What's the main idea? How are these sections connected? Is this an argument? Is this an argument? Is this an example of some previous section? All right, I hope this is helpful. If not, I'm sorry, but come to my office hours. This is a key skill. I'll be grading it all semester, so it's something you need to get a little bit better at in my class. Not that hard, but something that's important to me. All right, thanks all. Bye.